First Labor. Hercules' first labor was to slay the Nemean lion, a monstrous lion who had been terrorizing the countryside of Nemea. This wasn't just any lion. Its golden fur was said to be invulnerable to weapons. When Hercules arrived and tried to shoot it with arrows, they bounced off harmlessly. Realizing brute force wouldn't work, he blocked the lion's cave and faced it inside. In the darkness, Hercules wrestled the beast with his bare hands and eventually strangled it to death. But even then, he couldn't cut through its hide to remove the pelt, until Athena advised him to use one of the lion's own claws. He skinned it and wore the hide as a cloak, its gaping jaws forming a helmet. The sight of Hercules in the lion's pelt became one of his most recognizable traits and a defining part of his myth. Second Labor. Hercules' second labor was to slay the Lernaean Hydra, a serpent-like monster with multiple heads and deadly venom. It lived in the swamps of Lerna and terrorized its surroundings. The Hydra had a horrifying ability. If you cut off one head, two more grew in its place. To make things worse, its blood was so poisonous that even its breath could kill. When Hercules arrived, he covered his mouth and nose with cloth, then lured the beast from its lair by firing flaming arrows. At first, he attacked with his sword, but quickly realized he was making it worse. For each head he removed, more appeared. Luckily, his nephew Iolaus had followed him. Iolaus used a torch to burn the neck stumps after each decapitation, stopping the regeneration. When only the immortal central head remained, Hercules severed it and buried it under a huge rock. He then dipped his arrows in the Hydra's blood, making them fatal to any enemy they touched. This labor wasn't just about strength. It introduced teamwork, strategy, and Hercules' growing arsenal of deadly tools. Third Labor. Hercules' third labor was to capture the Ceryneian hind, a magical deer with golden antlers and hooves of bronze, sacred to the goddess Artemis. Unlike the earlier labors, this one wasn't about killing. He had to catch the creature alive without injuring it. The hind was incredibly fast, said to outrun arrows in flight. For a year, Hercules tracked it through forests, over rivers, and across mountains, never giving up. Finally, one morning at a quiet stream, the hind stopped to drink. Hercules silently crept up and shot a gentle arrow to wound its leg, just enough to slow it down. He carried the deer on his shoulders and began his journey back. But Artemis and her twin brother Apollo appeared, angry that he dared touch her sacred animal. Hercules explained the labor was forced on him and promised to return the hind unharmed. Impressed by his honesty, the goddess allowed him to complete the task. This labor tested Hercules' patience, skill, and ability to negotiate with the gods, traits not usually associated with brute force. Fourth Labor. Hercules' fourth labor was to capture the Erymanthian boar, a giant, violent beast that lived on Mount Erymanthus and ravaged villages below. Unlike the lion or the hydra, the boar wasn't magical, but it was enormous, angry, and unstoppable. Its tusk could gore a man with ease, and it trampled crops and homes alike. Hercules had to bring it back alive. He climbed into the snowy highlands where the boar lived. Using noise and shouts, he drove it up into deeper snow. Exhausted and trapped in the drifts, the creature struggled. That's when Hercules lunged, wrestled it down, and tied it up with heavy chains. He then carried the enormous beast all the way back to King Eurystheus. The king was so terrified at the sight that he hid in a giant bronze jar. But this labor also had a darker side. During his journey, Hercules stayed with a centaur named Pholus. When Hercules opened sacred wine, it enraged nearby centaurs, leading to a violent battle, and Pholus accidentally died. It was a reminder that even when following orders, Hercules' power could cause unintended harm. Fifth Labor. Hercules' fifth labor was to clean the Augean stables, a massive stable filled with thousands of cattle, untouched by a broom for over 30 years. This wasn't a battle with a beast, it was humiliation. King Augeas was rich and lazy, and his stables were overflowing with filth. Hercules was ordered to clean it all in a single day, which seemed impossible. But instead of grabbing a shovel, Hercules used his brain. He broke holes into the stable walls and diverted two nearby rivers, the Alpheus and Peneus, to flood through the muck. The rushing water washed out decades of waste in just hours. Alcaeus had promised Hercules a reward if he succeeded, but when he saw the job was done, he broke his word. Enraged, Hercules later returned, defeated Alcaeus, and gave the land to the workers. Still, King Eurystheus disqualified the labor because Hercules had tried to get paid. Sixth Labor. Hercules' sixth labor was to drive away the Stymphalian birds, man-eating creatures with bronze beaks, metallic feathers, and poisonous droppings. They nested by Lake Stymphalis in a dense marshy forest where regular weapons and armies couldn't reach them. Their feathers could be launched like darts, and their shrieking cries echoed like a war horn. Hercules had to find a way to flush them out. That's when Athena stepped in. She gave him a special rattle forged by Hephaestus, god of invention. Hercules climbed a hill, shook the clattering device, and startled the entire flock into the sky. As they rose, Hercules fired arrow after arrow, striking them mid-air. He killed many, and the rest scattered, never to return. This labor highlighted how even monsters beyond reach could be defeated with the right help and plan. Seventh Labor. Hercules' seventh labor was to capture the Cretan bull, a massive, fire-breathing beast that had once been a gift from Poseidon. It was meant to be sacrificed by King Minos of Crete, but Minos broke his promise. As punishment, Poseidon made the bull go wild, and worse, it became the father of the Minotaur. Now it roamed freely, wrecking fields and terrifying people. When Hercules arrived, he didn't kill it. Instead, he crept up, grabbed it by the horns, and held on. The bull thrashed violently, breathing fire and trying to shake him off, but Hercules wrestled it to the ground and chained it without injury. He then sailed it back to mainland Greece and presented it to Eurystheus, the king assigning these labors. Eurystheus, terrified by the sight, ordered it released immediately. Some say the bull later wandered to Marathon, where it would appear in other Greek myths. This labor was a direct link to other legends, and a reminder that Hercules' world was full of overlapping stories. Eighth Labor. Hercules' eighth labor was to capture the mares of Diomedes, flesh-eating horses belonging to a brutal Thracian king. Diomedes fed his horses human flesh, making them savage and uncontrollable. When Hercules arrived, he fought off the king's guards and drove the mares toward the coast, but they were too wild to be tamed, so Hercules turned Diomedes' cruelty back on him. He captured the king and fed him to his own horses. The mares oddly calmed down. Freed from their master's influence, they became docile. Hercules chained them and delivered them to Eurystheus. According to some versions, the mares were later released and wandered to Mount Olympus, where they were eaten by wild beasts. This labor wasn't just gory, it was symbolic. Hercules conquered savagery with savagery and exposed the roots of violence by ending the abuser. Ninth Labor. Hercules' ninth labor was to retrieve the belt of Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons, a warrior society of fierce women who lived by their own rules. The belt wasn't just decoration, it was a symbol of royal power, given to Hippolyta by Ares, god of war. Hercules needed it to complete his task, and at first, things went well. Hippolyta admired his bravery and agreed to give him the belt peacefully. But Hera, still trying to sabotage him, disguised herself and spread rumors among the Amazons that Hercules was planning to abduct their queen. Chaos erupted. The Amazons attacked, and in the confusion, Hercules believed Hippolyta had betrayed him. He killed her in battle and took the belt by force. What could have ended in diplomacy ended in bloodshed, not because of Hercules' strength, but because of divine manipulation. This labor revealed how easily peace could collapse under fear and misunderstanding, and the imperfections of heroes themselves. 10th Labor. Hercules' 10th labor was to steal the cattle of Geryon, a three-bodied giant who lived on the distant island of Erythea at the edge of the world. The journey alone was epic. Hercules had to cross scorching deserts, where the sun beat down so fiercely that he shot an arrow at Helios, the sun god. Rather than retaliate, Helios admired his boldness and lent him a golden cup boat to sail across the sea. Once on the island, Hercules faced a series of battles. First, he killed the two-headed watchdog Orthrus. Then, he defeated the herdsman Eurytion. Finally, he confronted Geryon himself, slaying the giant with an arrow dipped in hydra venom. But the return trip was nearly as hard. hard. Hera sent gadflies to scatter the cattle, and Hercules had to round them up again. Some were stolen along the way, and he fought off raiders and crossed rivers to bring them all back. This labor was a journey of endurance, patience, and willpower, a heroic odyssey within a single task. 11th Labor. Hercules' 11th labor was to steal the golden apples from the garden of the Hesperides, a divine orchard guarded by immortal nymphs and a 100-headed dragon named Ladon. The apples were a wedding gift from Gaia to Hera and symbolized immortality. But no one knew exactly where the garden was, so Hercules had to find it first. Along the way, he freed Prometheus from his eternal punishment, and in return, Prometheus told him how to find the garden. Once there, Hercules met Atlas, the Titan condemned to hold up the sky. Hercules offered to take the burden for a while if Atlas would fetch the apples. Atlas agreed, but after retrieving them, he tried to leave Hercules holding the sky forever. Hercules played along, asking Atlas to take the sky back just for a moment so he could adjust his cloak. As soon as Atlas took it, Hercules grabbed the apples and left, therefore tricking the trickster. 12th Labor. Hercules' 12th and final labor was the most dangerous of all, to bring back Cerberus, the three-headed guard dog of the underworld. Cerberus wasn't just a monster, he was the gatekeeper of the realm of the dead, making sure no soul escaped and no living person entered. To complete the task, Hercules had to descend into Hades itself, a place no hero returned from. He made offerings to the gods of the underworld and spoke with the shades of the dead, including heroes and even his own friends. Finally, he reached Hades and Persephone. They agreed to let him take Cerberus, but only if he used no weapons. Hercules confronted the beast in the dark caverns of the underworld. Cerberus snarled, lunged, and thrashed, but Hercules held his ground. With nothing but strength and willpower, he wrestled the three-headed dog into submission and dragged it back to the surface. After showing it to King Eurystheus, who nearly fainted, Hercules returned Cerberus unharmed. This final labor proved Hercules' greatness beyond doubt. He faced death itself and came back stronger, fearless, and forever legendary. I'll be making more videos like this soon. Subscribe to see them.